there, it's Linda here. Thanks so much for joining me today as I play with the goodies you can see here for a fun little sign for a child's bedroom. I decided I'm going to start making these little signs as student incentives to go with the bookmarks and the stationery packs. So this is the first one that I'm making today. So you've seen me measure up the sign front to match the size of the largest frame in the Hero Arts wood frame dies. And that frame is 14 centimetres by 11 centimetres. So I'm just working on a piece here of Bristol Smooth card that is that same size. So I'm using 3 distress inks and doing some ink blending on this piece. I started with the twisted Citron and then working my way through the middle with squeezed lemonade, and my goodness, it takes a long time to build up the depth of this colour. Squeezed lemonade is very, very faint, and it feels like I am going at it there, blending for 10 minutes or something. I sped it up here because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just taking forever. But it does take a long time to build up that colour of squeezed lemonade, and then eventually you start to see, yes, I can see now that there's a little bit of colour building there. So I went back then to the twisted Citron to get a bit more depth, and then on to the third colour. Oh no, I tell a lie, back to the squeezed lemonade again for a little bit more layering, and then on to the third colour, which is worn lipstick. And again, it takes a fair bit of time to work up the intensity of colour here with worn lipstick. So this is a process that does take time. You do have to be patient. You just have to ink up, blot off, and then blend on, and keep going until you build up the intensity that you want. And of course, whilst these colours are fairly pastel-y, I didn't want them to be too pale, so I probably could have picked raspberry and some other more vibrant colours, but I was looking for a pastel-y sort of range today, and so I just wanted to build up a certain level of brightness with these 3 shades. So once I've gone through, built up the intensity that I want, just back to the twisted Citron for a little bit more of a colour pop at the bottom there, and then you'll see me do some stenciling with the MFT, what is it called, sun rays, or yes, ray of light. You'll see me use my ray of light stencil. So just some temporary adhesive on the back here to hold it in place on my glass mat, and then laying the ray of light stencil on the top, and I'm just going to very subtly add those same colours over the same coloured sections just to build up a little bit of a contrast. So twisted Citron at the bottom, of course, and just back and forth just to build up a bit of depth there. I could have done white, I could have done just like a glimmer mist or a glimmer paste. I am going to use a glimmer paste, which you will have seen from the final result, but I did want to do this first, and then I offset the stencil when I use the glimmer paste, just to add a little bit something. You can see the little bit of darker rays from this inking that I'm doing here beside the glimmer pasted ones once it's all done. So peeling back the stencil, it's fairly subtle, but that's about all I need for that first little bit of tone on tone. So then I'm on to my Nouveau Moonstone Glimmer Paste, the most wonderful glimmer paste in the world, in my humble opinion. I am running out and getting some more very soon, because look, not much left there, and I won't be happy if I've got none at all, because it is absolutely gorgeous. If you haven't got it, you need it. Love it. So peeling off my stencil now, and then very carefully just wiping away the glimmer paste that's sort of gone over the edge a little bit. And I'm going pretty quickly because I want to go off and clean that stencil before anything dries. And that's what it looks like. You can see the darker shaded rays from my tone on tone blending beside the glimmer paste rays. Next step is to start doing all your die cutting. In this case, I'm using the sweet little Puppy Love from MFT. I just love this little fellow. He is so cute. Wish I had a puppy just like him, I really do. Anyway, adding all his bits and pieces here. His little different coloured ears to match his nose and his eye patch. Not hard at all to put these little fellows together. I do just sort of centre him using my craft mat there and try to line up ears and things and where I want them to be. Rubbing around the edge with my fingernail here, just a bit of a rough edge on his body there. A little bit of liquid adhesive and adding his head in place. And then it'll be a matter of working out where his sweet little arms are going to go. Sometimes I stick them down before the head, but today I decided that I was going to do it after, and I'm going to have this little one just up like he's sort of waving. So adding the little darker patches at the end of his little paws there, and then it's a matter of getting those in position. And thank goodness for these little fine tip applicators. I tell you, they are so handy when you're doing all these fiddly little die cutting bits and pieces like right now. So just adding his little tiny feet details there in dark brown cardstock. I've cut them. Black was just a little bit too intense, so the dark chocolate brown works well. And then using spun sugar and one of these tiny little blender brushes for some rosy little cheeks. And that will mean my little pup is complete, and then it's time to sort out the background that he is going to sit on. So I've got the Lawn Fawn border dies here, stitched Hillside borders, and I'm using some patterned paper to get that little stitched detail on my grass or on the little grassy knoll that's going to be sitting beneath my little pup. So there's just an area there in the middle I want to fill, so I'm just lining up the white crisscross pattern on the paper there, because you know, you just couldn't have your crisscrosses not matching, could you? That would just, that would be quite near to the end of the world, don't you think? So cutting off the little bits I don't need, and I've got myself a couple of little grassy hills for my pup to sit amongst. Now I did forget about the frame here, so I stuck my grassy hills down a little bit too low. So thankfully, yes, as you can see, thankfully, because it's such a textured background, the little hills have not quite stuck yet, so I can pick them up, add a bit more glue, use my little pokey tool that hubby made for me to unblock my fine tip applicator, lift that little hillock up, stick it down in the right place, and then start again with the frame. That looks much better. So just working out where my frame is going to be stuck. These are quite delightful, these frames from Hero Arts. I'm really enjoying them, and the finished sort of detail that they add to your work. I'm just adding quite a bit of liquid adhesive, getting that right around the edge there, holding all the little bits of the frame together, because the die cut, you know, has these lines in it for the wood grain, and they get a little bit pulled apart if you don't make sure that they stick lying down beside each other. A little bit of pressure with some acrylic blocks just to hold everything in place. Thinking of my sentiment, and I've used some more of that checked patterned paper. I've cut out the letters U, and I'm going to stamp a little added sentiment to go with that. I decided I was going to layer them up with foam, foam tape, or craft foam I should say, as well, so that the pup and the U are at the same height on the little sign. So just getting them all adhered together and allowing them to dry. And then I'm adding the same craft foam, so everything's at the same height, adding bits of that to the back of the pup as well, and then just working out where he's going to sit, making sure I'm happy with that. Lots and lots of liquid adhesive on the back. because with that glimmer paste you really do need to make sure that he is stuck well. Bit of pressure with an acrylic block, and then using my T-square ruler to line up my letters, and I add a little, as you can see there, little stamped sentiment fabulous to the U. And these are the sorts of signs that I'm going to be making just to encourage the kids to be the best they can be, and I hope they'll enjoy having them in their bedrooms, up on the wall, or maybe sitting on their bedside table, and when they look at them they'll be inspired and encouraged. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to have you here. I hope you've enjoyed my crafting, and I'll see you again soon.